We thought that we were making music that was pretty much more experimental compared to the other things. So we came up with the letter X, and we used 101, 102, 103 as if we were in college and you're taking English 101 or English 102. So basically we wanted to create something that was more academic. And so we made X-101, and there really wasn't a concept to that release because we just wanted to see if we could work together in this capacity. We had just hired Robert Hood as an intern, and we were kind of teaching him how to produce music, and he used to work at a record shop, and he wanted to be a DJ, but we seen that he had potential at producing music, so we allowed him to produce 1 or 2 tracks on the X-101 album, which were very good. So we wanted to create bring him along in the project, and so it took us a while to figure out which direction we wanted to go in terms of the concepts after 101. It wasn't until we were flying to Rome for a New Year's Eve event that we came up with this idea that maybe we should focus more on the physical aspects of the next project, meaning the vinyl and the CD and the color of the artwork, and we thought that maybe the planet of Saturn would be something that we could translate, or something we could use the vinyl to be able to also use in the concept. So the grooves of the record kind of symbolized, were in reference to the grooves of the planet, and the planet itself was the label, which is where we used to put most of the information. And it just made more sense that maybe Saturn would be the one. So we began the production on it soon after we came back, January, February, and we were more focused. Well, we wanted to be more focused on how we proceeded in this project because we knew it would be very, very important. We were following X-101, and it had like a hit, somewhat, a track called Sonic Destroyer. So we knew that we really had to be more focused on this one. So what we did, we decided to designate, break up the album into different parts, and each one of us would produce a certain type of style of music, and then we put them all together. And I was maybe the most active in these conceptual type of aspects, so it was my job to go to the library and grab as many books as I could about Saturn and bring all the information back to the office and read through and extract the information out and then present it to the other two. So after looking at the information, we then decided that maybe Robert would be best at creating the tracks that were more linear, more minimal, very simple, and that those would kind of act as the transition parts between the main tracks, meaning the moons and the major rings, and that I would handle the more experimental parts of it, the more obscure, kind of strange things. I was most interested in that, and that Mike Banks would focus on the more orchestration, the more classical type of arrangements, and we would put these things together, and that would be the album. It took about 4 months to finish the album, and then we turned to the artwork and the visual aspects of it. So we had to try to find a way to be able to describe what the artwork and everything looks like based on what the planet looks like, and so a particular type, if you remember, a particular type of orangey type of color was actually the actual color of the planet. And at the time, there wasn't that much information about Saturn. It was only known, I think the A, B, and C rings were the major rings. Just a few moons were known about, like Mimas and Enceladus, and Titan, which was the most interest at the time because It had elements that were similar to what we have here on Earth. So that was the greatest, it had the greatest attention at the time. And so what we did, we decided to format the album as if one left Earth. Well, one would have to kind of somehow transcend outside of the physical body because it was just impossible to travel to Saturn at that time. So the beginning of the album was more mystical because you are transcending. And I had this idea as if you're having like an outer body experience so that you're actually able to travel to the planet. So it becomes kind of spiritual at the very beginning. And then you would somehow leave the planet and then slingshot around the galaxy, the solar system, and then go past Jupiter, go past Mars, and then approach the planet of Saturn. And then once there would be a pause, which what you've seen. And this was all created in 1992. And we had this idea, but we weren't able to materialize it because we didn't have the resources to put together the film. But the story has been existing since then. So there would be a pause just before the planet, so that you would see it in scale, and then you would begin to travel over the rings towards the planet itself. And we have yet to see the surface of Saturn, so you would only get close enough to see the liquid gas and all those things, and then you would then go off to the planet of Titan, which again was the most interest of that time, and then off into space. And so we kept this format in putting together this album, and so when I left the group Underground Resistance at the end of '92. We always kept in contact, and whenever we would make contact, we would always discuss the idea of this project, because we knew that we only just made the album, and that we really wanted to put together a tour and make a film, and really, as the discoveries of the planet came in, we would update the project. And so I had always had this idea that when NASA or some other space agency gathers enough information, we can then move on this project and then complete it. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I decided that maybe it was the best thing to do. So this film, it's about 450 plus still images, and about a tenth of that are moving images, very small short films, and so Mike and I refurbished it with the new information that we had from the Cassini hydrogen space probe. We made the newer tracks, and then put it in the proper order in which the information of what we had, and I'll give you some information about the planet itself. The diameter of the planet, the rings are 144,000 miles in diameter and only 60 miles in depth. So it is in the same comparison to like a sheet of paper, basically. And many more moons were discovered since 1992, and now the greatest interest is of the planet, the moon Enceladus, because of the water geysers that are supposedly in the center of the moon. It's really unique because I think that's the only moon that actually shifts off its axis, meaning that it at times moves towards the planet of Saturn and away from it, and it's never really the same. And they've discovered that there could be very large oceans of water inside the planet, which is how the reason why it shifts off and on. And so, of course, if there's water, then chances are great that there's probably life. So that's the greatest interest right now. In the discussion that we had with scientists when we were doing the research for this, there were things about the planet that were very mysterious, of course, things that they could not explain, and there's just a